Running a lot with a very low heart rate is critical to making progress in healthy running and running for races. And if you're just starting out running and you're finding that you aren't able to actually run with a low heart rate, the problem isn't anything that you're doing incorrectly. The problem is that you haven't been told what the issue is. And I'm here to tell you that right now. Unfortunately, it's that you're just not fit enough to run with a low heart rate. However, we can fix that really easily. You see, the problem when you're trying to run with a low heart rate and you're just starting out, it's like trying to go 100 miles an hour on a highway while you're driving a riding lawnmower. The difference between running and trying to race with a riding lawnmower is that when you're running, you can actually build your engine to be faster, stronger, be able to run for longer, while working much easier. Instead of being stuck with that lawnmower high heart rate, we can get you fully up to speed like a performance car ready to go. And we're going to tell you how to do that today. What's up, motivators? My name is Tara, and when ordinary people want to accomplish something extraordinary in endurance sports, they choose our totally free Motive training plans. You ready to take on that next big challenge? Let's do it. What happens when we run is our heart communicates with mitochondria, a bunch of tiny little cells that are inside of all of our muscles in order to produce the energy needed to run. But unfortunately, when we're just starting out running, we don't have a lot of these mitochondria. It's fairly sparse because we haven't yet built it up. So in order to create the energy needed to run, we have to increase our heart rate so that there are more cycles of the heart rate supplying all of these mitochondria with the blood and fuel necessary to create that energy. If we're just starting out, there aren't a lot of mitochondria in our muscles. So our heart rate has to work really fast over and over and over, creating more and more cycles going back and forth in order to produce all that energy. It's just a matter of your engine not being very fit. But if we can increase the amount of mitochondria in all of these cells, you're going to have a lot more mitochondria that are there and available to actually create the energy, so your heart rate doesn't need as many cycles. It's going to pump a lot slower because it doesn't have to create all those cycles at the same rate. So you're going to be able to run faster, and at the same effort, you're going to be able to run longer. It's going to build your speed and your endurance. Now, this isn't a problem with you. This is common to every single new beginner runner. They have to go through the steps of building up all of that mitochondria. The problem is that a lot of coaches will tell you one of two things that are going to make it so hard for you to make any progress. They'll either tell you that, well, you don't really have to worry about that because it's so difficult to do that we'll just kind of skip that step and focus on really fast running and get faster that way. But this is like trying to drive that lawnmower down the highway at 100 miles an hour. It's going to be revving at such a high rate that it's ready to blow up. This is when you feel like you're going to bonk and you can't possibly run anymore. Or the second issue with a lot of coaches is that they might not even talk about this and realize that when beginner runners are starting out, they need to focus on building the foundation to be able to run. And that foundation is built upon a high density of mitochondria. I personally know this really well because I was that beginner runner years ago. I just spun my wheels, not making any progress, not building any endurance for 6 years. And it wasn't until I took a step back and focused on really well-designed foundational building runs that I started making progress. When I finally got the system right, I went from a 2-hour half marathon athlete down to a 1:32 half marathon athlete in just a few months. So here's the system that you can start applying to your running to make that progress much easier for you. First, you need a heart rate strap. You cannot track your heart rate with a watch. A watch is going to be off by as much as 30 to 50 beats per minute. So start by getting yourself a heart rate strap so that the data that you're using to measure your heart rate while you're running is much more accurate. The second thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your heart rate zones are correct so that when you're training in the right intensity level. And you'll get your heart rate zones correct by doing a max heart rate test. What you're going to do is a 2-mile easy warm-up jog, then 1 mile at steady tempo pace, where you feel like you're working fairly hard, but you're not really tiring yourself out. Then you end by doing 400 meters at an absolute max sprinting effort, and then you finish by doing another 400 meters, where at every 100-meter interval, you are pushing more and more and more. And this is going to get you to your maximum heart rate. You also then want to measure your resting heart rate. Lie down for 10, 20 minutes, be as calm as you possibly can, and measure your resting heart rate. Then go to a calculator that is free to access and will link in the description below. It's on our Motive website, where you enter your maximum heart rate, your resting heart rate, and from that you will get accurate training zones that are specific to your physiology so that you know when you're running at the exact intensity level to make progress. The third step is the actual workouts that you need to do to make progress. And there are 2 workouts that you need to do with this every single week. The first one is a long run, but what we like to do is to make it easy for beginner athletes who have a very hard time running at a low heart rate, make this long run more of a long hike, where you're on trails, where you're naturally going to be building in a lot of walk breaks and run breaks. It's also going to help your body stay durable with side-to-side movements and up and down movements. So you're becoming a stronger athlete and you're going to be stronger on your feet. But it's going to be much easier for you to hike in your zone 2 heart rate than it will be for you to run on flat ground in your zone 2 heart rate. This is where most people tend to go wrong, because what they find when they're starting out is it's very hard to run at a low heart rate, so they just don't do it. By making this long run instead a long hike with as many run intervals and walk intervals as you need to do to keep your heart rate in zone 2, you are going to be in the best training zone for your body to build all of that mitochondria that you need for your heart rate to eventually come down. The second key workout is where most people tend to focus on, and it is the 1 run per week where you're going to go really fast. You see, it's not enough to just build up more mitochondria. You need to teach all of that new mitochondria how to work. And this is done with a fast workout. And this fast workout is done once per week, where you're doing intervals of anywhere from 30 seconds up to 8 minutes, pushing really quite hard, and intermixing that with a rest period of walking or very easy jogging. At this point, you don't need to fuss about whether the intervals are 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 4 minutes or 8 minutes or how long the rest period is. As long as you are pushing your heart rate really high, it's going to be teaching those newly built mitochondria how to work. This probably seems really simple, but there are a few hard parts about all this. The first one is being a coach and giving the bad news that, hey, you're just not that fit to run at a low heart rate. But the second part is, as a coach, saying, hey, we can fix that, and we're gonna do it by altering the workouts a little bit away from what you would commonly do and turn your long run into a long hike. The third part is hard work on your part, checking your ego at the door and being willing to go and be patient with those long hike-ish kind of runs as your mitochondria builds up. If you do all this though, what's going to happen is that over the course of the next 6 months, you are going to find that your heart rate very consistently comes down. Maybe it's just by a beat or 2 per minute every single week, but within 6 months, you're gonna be able to run at a low heart rate very easily. And the really interesting thing about this is that the progress won't stall out after 6 months. In our Motive app, we have athletes that have been working with us for 4.5 years, and they're in their 60s, and they are still making progress year after year after year. Because low heart rate running is like the gift that keeps on giving. You keep making progress, building more mitochondria and teaching that mitochondria how to work. And because you're constantly building your engine and not stressing what its capabilities are, you're able to build that engine up year after year after year, raising the bar of what you're capable of doing every single race season. Now, if you start doing this and you find that you start encountering challenges and maybe running with a low heart rate is harder than you thought, click the video that's on the screen right now that has the 5 heart rate running mistakes that is common to most new runners when they start trying to run with a low heart rate. This will help you get over those 5 big issues and set yourself up for success. Later, motivators.